February 14th, 1943. 18,000 feet above the Solomon Islands. The tropical sun burns through the morning haze as Lieutenant Kenneth Walsh of Marine Fighting Squadron 124 scans the horizon through his canopy. Below, the Pacific stretches endlessly, deep blue and deceptively calm. But in the distance, glints of silver move against the light. Zeros, at least a dozen. Walsh adjusts his oxygen mask, his gloved hand steady on the control stick of his brand-new machine. The Vought F4U Corsair. Its gull-shaped wings gleam under the sun, still streaked with salt spray from takeoff. The cockpit hums with restrained power, the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine growling beneath him, 2,000 horsepower of coiled fury. VMF 124, this is Blue Leader. Walsh radios. Bandits at 3 o'clock. Hi. Let's see what this hog can do. The squadron banks hard into the climb. The Corsairs rise fast, climbing higher and faster than the pilots have ever experienced. Below them, the Japanese formation tightens. 20 Mitsubishi A6M0s of the Tainan Air Group, veterans of Rabaul and Guadalcanal. The Japanese leader, Lieutenant Isamu Miyazaki, spots the strange, bent-wing silhouettes diving in from the clouds. Not wildcats. He murmurs to his wingman. Something new. The Zeros twist upward, engines whining, their wings flashing white in the sun. The Corsairs meet them head-on. Walsh pushes the throttle forward, the aircraft vibrating with power. The altimeter spins down as he dives. 400, 420, 450 miles per hour. The first pass is over in seconds. A Zero bursts into flame, shredded by the 650 caliber Brownings mounted in the Corsair's wings. Another tries to turn inside him, but Walsh rolls inverted and climbs away, leaving the Japanese pilot stalled in his wake. Christ, she climbs like a rocket, Walsh mutters. Miyazaki pulls up hard, stunned by what he's seeing. American planes aren't supposed to do that. Not climb like this, not dive that fast and pull out still flying. Within minutes, the formation that had once hunted wildcats with ease is scattered across the sky. Burning trails of smoke marking the end of Japan's aerial dominance. Walsh's Corsair streaks through the clouds, victorious. Below him, the Pacific glitters like broken glass. Above, the Empire's once feared Zeros fall from their pedestal, and a new king of the sky takes its place. 3 years earlier, in the quiet factory floors of Stratford, Connecticut, the Corsair was little more than a gamble. Vought engineers huddled around drafting tables covered in blueprints. A radical new design taking shape under the guidance of Chief Engineer Rex Beasel. The problem was simple but unforgiving. How do you build a carrier fighter fast enough to match Germany's Bf-109 and Japan's Zero, yet tough enough to survive naval combat? Biesel's answer was anything but conventional. A massive 18-cylinder radial engine coupled with a massive propeller, too large for standard landing gear. The solution: inverted gull wings. They gave the Corsair its unmistakable shape and lowered the landing gear enough to clear the oversized propeller. Mechanics nicknamed it the bent-wing bird. By 1942, test pilots had learned to respect and fear the beast. It was fast, yes, terrifyingly fast. The prototype shattered records at over 400 MEP, but on carrier decks, it was a handful. It bounced on landing, floated over arresting wires, and had a vicious stall that could snap roll in an instant. Navy pilots joked that the Corsair could kill a man before the enemy ever fired a shot. So the Navy turned to the Marines. They didn't need to land on carriers. Not yet. They needed speed, range, and firepower to fight in the Solomons. At Camp Kearney in California, young Marine aviators stood beside their gleaming new Corsairs, listening to flight instructors bark warnings. "She'll climb like a homesick angel, boys, but she'll bite if you're careless." When VMF 124 shipped out in early 1943, few realized they were carrying the weapon that would rewrite air combat over the Pacific. The first missions were chaos. Engines overheating, landing gear buckling, cockpits steaming under tropical heat. But when the Zeros appeared, every flaw was forgotten. The Corsair didn't need to turn tighter. It just needed to dive, strike, and vanish. Japanese pilots, used to graceful dogfights, now faced an opponent that fought like lightning, unseen, unstoppable, and untouchable in a climb. Above the Solomons, the age of the Zero was ending. The Corsair had arrived, and it didn't play by the old rules. January 1944. Over the turquoise waters of the Marshall Islands, the roar of radial engines shakes the humid air. From the deck of the USS Bunker Hill, a squadron of Corsairs, VMF 213, launches into the rising sun. Their folded wings unfold like the arms of angels, locking into place as the pilots throttle forward. Captain Archie Donahue, one of the Navy's finest, watches his airspeed climb past 300 knots as he levels off at 15,000 feet. His canopy rattles slightly as his aircraft, White 29, slices through the clouds. Below him, the islands of Kwajalein and Roy Namur burn under the relentless pounding of naval artillery. Suddenly, spotters call over the radio, "Bandits! Zeros inbound from the north, Angels 12. Donahue rolls right, eyes narrowing. Tiny specks, like silver insects, approach fast. The Japanese pilots, still flying their A6 M50s, are confident. For years they've dominated these skies, weaving and turning tighter than any American plane could match. But this time, something's different. The Corsairs don't turn. They dive. 4 F4Us plummet like hawks, wings cutting through the sunlight, engines howling. The lead Zero breaks left, expecting to outturn them. Instead, a hail of .50 caliber fire rips through his fuselage. The plane explodes in midair, debris scattering into the sea below. Donahue pulls back hard, climbing away at a near vertical angle. His altimeter spins upward, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 feet, faster than any Japanese fighter can follow. Below him, the radio crackles with Marine voices. They can't catch us, not even close. For the Japanese pilots, it's bewildering. The Zero, once the master of the Pacific, now finds itself outpaced, outgunned, and outclimbed. Its lightweight frame, once its greatest asset, is now a death sentence. Lieutenant Hiroshi Kobayashi of the 261st Kokutai pulls into a desperate climb, his Zero straining. The American fighter ahead of him, another Corsair, simply vanishes into the clouds. A second later, tracers streak downward from above. Kobayashi's canopy shatters. The plane bursts into flames, spiraling toward the lagoon. The air battle lasts less than 10 minutes. When it's over, 14 Zeros lie scattered across the Pacific. The Corsairs return to the Bunker Hill almost untouched. As Donahue taxis onto the deck, deckhands cheer and slap the wings of the returning planes. He removes his helmet, sweat dripping down his brow, and mutters quietly, "They thought we were still flying Wildcats." The Corsair had changed everything. Its speed, dive, and firepower made it a predator, not a duelist. And as the war pressed north toward Saipan, the Mariana Islands, and eventually Okinawa, the bent-wing bird became the terror of Japanese skies. April 1945, the Battle of Okinawa. The Pacific sky is thick with smoke and chaos. Flak bursts bloom like black flowers, and the sea below is a graveyard of burning ships. The Japanese have unleashed their final weapon, the kamikaze. From Yantan airfield, rows of F4U Corsairs sit lined up on pierced steel planking, their engines idling. Their once fresh blue paint is now sun-bleached and chipped from months of combat. The pilots of F312, the checkerboards, climb into their cockpits, faces drawn, helmets streaked with oil and sweat. Captain Ken Rooser, already a legend, tightens his harness and glances skyward. The radio crackles with an urgent call. Multiple bogies inbound from the north, estimated 50, all low. Rooser's voice is calm. Checkerboard flight. Let's go hunting. The Corsairs thunder down the strip and lift into the gray dawn. Within minutes, the formation spots them. Swarms of Japanese aircraft diving toward the Allied fleet. Some are old Zeros, others are stripped-down Kai-43 Hayabusas, each carrying a single 250-kilogram bomb. The Corsairs dive from 20,000 feet, sunlight glinting off their gull wings. Their engines scream as they accelerate past 420 mph, faster than any prop-driven fighter in the Pacific. The Japanese pilots below barely have time to react. Tracer rounds carve white streaks through the sky. One Zero disintegrates in midair, its wings snapping clean off. Another bursts into flames as Rooser's .50 calibers hammer its fuel tank. Below, the sea erupts as kamikazes crash short of their targets, torn apart before they can strike. "They're diving too fast," a Japanese pilot cries over the radio, his voice trembling. "We can't follow them." The Corsairs climb sharply, engines howling, looping for another pass. The air vibrates with the sound of their radial engines. A deep, predatory growl that echoes through the clouds. By the time the smoke clears, over 30 Japanese aircraft lie scattered across the sea. The U.S. fleet survives another day, thanks to the men in the Hog. That evening, Rooser stands beside his aircraft, the sun setting blood-red behind him. Ground crewmen wipe oil and soot from the Corsair's gun ports, the smell of cordite still thick in the air. The pilot stares toward the horizon, the same direction from which the kamikazes had come. "They just keep coming," he mutters softly. But so do we. In Tokyo, Japanese intelligence reports filter in from the front. New American fighter, impossible speed, heavy armament, not to be engaged in climbing combat. The myth of the Zero's invincibility, born over China and Pearl Harbor, has died here, over Okinawa. By VJ Day, the Corsair will claim over 2,000 enemy aircraft. Its pilots, like Walsh, Donahue, and Rooser, will become legends. And its legacy, that estranged bent-wing silhouette, will become the face of American air dominance in the Pacific. When the war ends, a single Corsair sits quietly on the deck of the USS Bunker Hill, its paint scuffed, its fuselage pocked with bullet holes. The ocean around it is calm again. The sound of engines has faded. The whistling death, as Japanese pilots had come to call it, rests in silence. The sky, once ruled by the Zero, now belongs to the gull-winged ghost that no one saw coming.